in an echoey hall, myself and Josh. We're going to wait a minute or so. Josh is very good at countdown music, so we're going to wait a minute for a few people to log in to come, and then we're going to start. It's going to kick it off in about a minute's time. So if you haven't got your cup of tea, if you're stretching on the sofa, make yourself comfortable. We're aiming for about half an hour. Josh is in his Tottenham kit, and they've got a very big game against.
What we got? Rochdale. Come on, boys.
Rochdale in the FA Cup. So in
an hour. No, the match is in an hour.
Yeah. So only about that. We're gonna do questions 30 minutes or so. Yeah. See how it goes. And hopefully you'll learn a thing or two about cycling around the world, and you will yourself one day.
Yeah.
Do it yourself.
Right, I think we've got 3 seconds.
3 seconds.
Should we go for it?
Do your countdown music. Okay.
Got to go.
So, before I kick us off with who is Josh, who am I, and how I met Josh. So, Josh is out here for a week, lives in the UK. I first met him my first day of Nottingham University. After my gap year, was a little bit nervous about going to uni, was praying that I would meet a good Christian mate early doors, and I met Josh, sat next to him in a big assembly hall. Everyone was nervously sat there waiting for the intro to uni, and then we share about what we did in our gap years, and Josh was like, oh yeah, I did something in the church as well. So I was like, oh yes, is this Christian answer to prayer straight away? And then I said, oh, actually, mate, it's my birthday tomorrow. And I'm a bit worried because a lot of people have been saying they're going to get me absolutely hammered on my birthday. And as an innocent Christian boy, I'd never drunk that much before. So Josh is like, yeah, we'll pray for you. Don't worry, you can trust me. So we go back to the student bar, me and Josh, my new best mate, and Josh gets on a chair, stands up in front of everyone in the hall and goes, it's Foxy's birthday, let's get him smashed!
dirty point!
So that's the friend that
good friend
that I've got in Josh. And Josh, tell us what you've been doing since uni.
What have I done since uni? So I went up north to Scotland to be an outdoor instructor in Rocky Cay, so take groups of kids to go abseiling, climbing, mountain biking, all that kind of good stuff. And then after a year of doing that, joined the army, so went to Sandhurst for a year, then went to the Brecon Beacons to do 4 months of doing infantry battle training, and that was grim. And then soon after that, after a few training exercises, went out to Iraq, did that for 6 months. And now, after Iraq, having had quite a bit of holiday left over, I've used 2 weeks to see this man here, try and share, try and get involved with his amazing adventure so far.
Yeah. I'm walking around India confidently now with Josh, who's been in Iraq for 6 months. I can walk around my chest pumped and with a bit more confidence compared to when I was on my own, just kind of ducking and diving between places. But now I feel very safe with Josh. So, Josh, go on, kick us off.
Okay, so I think let's chat to these people here so they're aware that it's 30 minutes interview.
About 30 minutes.
About 30 minutes. And we want to know about Simon Fox. That's why I've come here, because this guy is amazing. I don't know many people who take a year of teaching where it's comfortable, UK is comfortable, to then go cycle around the world, starting at Bromley, and now he's in India, starting through Europe to Turkey, flew over to India, 6 weeks in India. So I guess the first question I want to ask you is talk to me about your route.
Talk to me about the route. Okay, so left Bromley with Barney Newman, my dad Fox. Oh no, I put myself in it.
Who is it?
Sophie and Chris and one other, Tim. If you're watching, nice to see you. And we set off from Bromley, went south to Brighton, from Brighton, been through 17 countries, of 3 months to Istanbul in Europe, and then flew from Istanbul to Mumbai, and now 6-7 weeks in India, going through different states in India. Didn't realise that every state has a new language in India, so even if you're Indian, if you travel within India, you can't speak the same language as the other people. So yeah, that's been the journey so far.
how many kilometres have you covered?
So it's been about 8,500 kilometres, nearing 9,000 now. Earlier Josh was saying, can I recall each country? So very, very quickly. England to France, number 2. Went east to Belgium, and then quickly out of Belgium into Holland. Holland, I went east to Germany. Bit wet and windy in Germany. Germany to the Czech Republic, to Poland, back into the Czech Republic, to Austria, south to Slovenia, then to Croatia, Serbia, no, not Serbia, Bosnia, Macedonia, Albania, Greece, Turkey. Spent Christmas and New Year in Georgia, didn't cycle there, but still include it. And then India!
Basically. Okay. Well, first question of our view is from Freya Ligo. She's
by the way, that's Josh's girlfriend.
Yeah, so. Good girl. She is. She's let me spend time on Valentine's Day with this
Valentine's Day.
Amazing day.
Substitute.
Yeah. Anyway, Freya's asking you, what's your favourite place of those 17 countries and why?
A lot of these questions, my response is, if I was a parent and I was asked what my favourite child is, it's a similar question. You know, how can you pick with so many different lovely, great, amazing places? I'd say in terms of the geography, being a geography teacher, I spent time in Slovenia, and it was kind of the end of autumn coming into winter, and with the autumnal colours in the leaves, and then mountain passes, lakes, it was beautiful. And being not that far from home as well, probably go back to Slovenia, do some cycling. Lake Bled gets the headlines, but there's mountains, villages. It feels a little bit, it's still got the the western kind of development, but you can still enjoy all these places quite cheaply as well. So yeah.
And before we ask more questions, can you just give us sort of a typical day, a typical routine?
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, boys. Can you give a typical routine?
What happens in a normal day?
Yeah.
So I'll give you more of an Indian routine because it's the most recent, but in the last few weeks in India, if wake up in the morning, might be in a lodge, might be with a pastor, I'd kind of see where I need to get to for that day. It's normally about 100k, maybe 120. There was one week when I was doing 150, 160k a day, and seeing that my average speed is about 20 kilometers an hour, that can be up to 8 hours of cycling. So I kind of have some local breakfast, normally quite spicy. There was a thought in my mind, why in the UK do we settle for cereal, which is so bland, when in the Indians, they have this amazingly tasty breakfast every single morning. Have a bit of breakfast, and then I'll set off, and generally I'll try and go for about 3 hours until lunch or like a snack, and then I'll go for another 2 hours, hour and a half, and then split it into kind of 2 or hour and a half sections. And I find that works for me, that if you need to do 8 hours of cycling, there's only 9 hours of sunlight, then you're not going to be taking that many breaks. And then I'll arrive at a place, maybe a place where I'll get a lodge. In India, teenage boys love guiding you to lodges, so I'll end up in a town, a flock of people will come to me just because I'm white. I'll say, lodge, 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 and then 2 little teenage boys will like pop up, and often they'll take me to this lodge and then they won't go, so they'll show me the room. They'll also look at the room. They'll be like, oh, this is a nice room. Then they'll ask for a picture in the room. Then I'm in the room with them, and I'll think, when are they going to go? And then often, a couple of times it's been the case, the next morning I'm going away from the lodge, and these teenage boys turn up again, and I'm like, what's going on? So some helpful / slightly creepy. And another thing, I've been staying with a lot of pastors, a lot of people from churches, and I'll often arrive into a town, ask to use someone's phone. Everyone has been receptive. Even today we asked to use someone's phone, and ring like the pastor. They'll come and meet me, guide me to their where they live, and get involved with whatever they've got on that night. So yeah.
Brilliant. A really important question from a close relative of yours, Grandma T.
Oh,
she wants to know, how do you do your washing?
Grandma Tamage. So I called the trip Cycle Till Sunday originally. The idea to cycle until Sunday, stop at a church at the weekend, and then get going again on Monday or Tuesday. So Grandma Tamage, if you're watching, you haven't got internet, so you won't be. that moment in churches, I often just give them a bag of clothes and they return them to me clean. I think the longest I went was 2 weeks without a wash in terms of clothes, but that was in Europe when the sweat doesn't sweat as much. So.
I've got a question similar to washing as well. Is Chris Brown gone? You want to say something?
Just like Grandma Tamage lives in Worthing, so you know they haven't got internet down there yet. So that's very
bless her. Bless her. Chris Brown thinks your beard is terrible, and he's asking you, is it going or staying? And can I ask another question with that as well? Because my dad, he has a beard, and he puts ointment on his beard. Do you wash your beard as well? So is the beard going or staying? And do you wash your beard?
Firstly, I've seen Josh's dad a number of times, Dan, and he's got a cracking beard. It's a lot more wizardy than mine. I've had 3 haircuts on the trip: Albania, Georgia, Christmas Day, and India. And the most recent one in India, I was about to go through this place where everyone was telling me it was like a scary place. So I thought I would keep the beard. And now I've regretted it. And I agree with Chris, it doesn't look great. So the next opportunity, I think I will give it a shot. At the start of the trip, there was an element of how long can I keep it going, but yeah, no, I'm going to get rid of it.
Next question, John Brown, or Jonathan Brown? Or
yes, John Brown.
Great guy. He's asked you, when have you laughed the most? What happened?
John Brown from a church at home, great guy. I was often listening to his talks on the podcast while cycling. What was his question?
He's asking you, when have you laughed the most?
When have I laughed the most? Well, you go a bit crazy in the Saddam sometimes. Recent memories are with Josh this week. We've had a few big laughs playing funny games in museums in Calcutta, which if I tried to explain it wouldn't be funny, so I'm not going to. Yeah, a big laugh. I think you laugh at yourself. You have to learn to laugh at yourself a lot because you're in ridiculous situations. Or laughing maybe at little like children, what they might do on the road, or like a reaction of someone. Specifically, I can think of a few times that I've done some crazy things, but yeah.
Well, I think this next nicely on to what has he done? Is Ali Jones wants to ask you, have you had awkward moments involving a number 2? And that's kind of linked with John Brown. So have you had any awkward moments involving a number 2?
Yeah, well, I've crossed from the toilets in Europe where you can use toilet paper and flush it, toilets where you use toilet paper but you can't flush it, and then toilets where there's no toilet paper at all. And then that goes without saying, when you don't use a toilet, where do you go? So I've got, stories of all 3, I think. Very embarrassing in India recently. I think I've told this story to Josh, and I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I was staying in a hotel with a pastor, a lovely pastor, took me to his village church, took me to like his family, his brother, had a really great evening. The thing in India, they eat very, very late, so it's about 10, 11, I think it was 11:30 p.m. and I already had like a supper at 7 p.m. Already quite full, but the respectful thing, the cultural thing to do is to eat with them again. So I always have to say yes. So that night I had a very late dinner and wake up in this hotel with him in the morning. We'd had single beds, it was all okay. And then I had my shower, and then he was having his shower. And during his shower, I suddenly realised I needed a number 2. I thought, how long is he going to be? He sounded like he was still applying the soap. And I thought every hotel has another toilet downstairs in the reception. So I got the lift downstairs, and the guys there spoke no English, and they were like, no toilet, but there's one in your room. I was like, I know there's one in my room. And then the guy got in the elevator with me to show me this toilet in the room. And I knew that the pastor was in there, so I got back into the room. And I was like, okay, at this point it feels a little better, I think I can hold it. And I got a bit of a maybe literally running history of the odd bad poo story. So I was a little bit nervous, and then it went away. But then, 10 times worse, it came back. I knew I had to go there and then. So I was in this hotel room, I looked at the window, I looked at the bin, I looked at the newspaper, and I can't tell you which one I used, but I used one.
Link that. Let's be more quickly.
If you want to know, you're going to
ask you later.
Talk to me in person.
Have you missed running?
I won't miss running. I've done runs like in Poland. I did a park run. I know we've gone. Just have a look. Is it still? Oh no. Come on. Oh, it's still live. Is that okay?
It's still live. I think it is.
You think so?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
We're good. We're back in.
Sorry, ask that question again.
Running. Have you missed running?
Have I missed running? So in Poland, I was able to do a park run in Poland. It was an out and back. I missed the turn point, but still managed to come home first.
No big deal. Classic.
And in a lot of Europe, I was able to go on runs in local places, and I did think of my running friends every time I was going for a run. Some of those Norman Park boys and girls, Bromley Park runners, and I was thinking, oh, I can recommend this place for a run, recommend that. But in India, it's a different story with the pollution, with the smog, and often, you've got no chance of going for a run. So I went for a run at a school where there was a running track, and maybe in Mumbai that first week. But because my time's taken up with cycling and I was committed to that, I don't miss running, but I know in my mind, I listen to a running podcast every week called Marathon Talk, and that does keep me enthusiastic about running, keeps me interested in the running world. And also, just to give a little shout out, my dad ran the Tunbridge Wells half marathon this morning back home in a PB time, 1:34. He's 57, no he's not, he's 52, I think, 52. And a lot of other friends, Daniel, Julian Selman running as well, so I'm sure they did well.
I've got a weird one. Gillian Selman?
Yeah, that's Gillian who was just mentioned.
Okay, cool, awesome. Alright, we'll move on then. She's asked about Norman Park.
The Norman Park?
Yeah.
So Norman Park is just where everyone at home runs. I've done thousands of laps at Norman Park. Roger Villadale has done millions of laps of Bromley Park, but he's got a better marathon PB time than me, so I'll get to you.
Okay. Right, we're going to get to you. AJ, he wants to know about your best and worst experience with eating food of the countries.
Oosh. Wow, that's a big question. 17 countries, 17 different cultures of food. Most recently, curry, and the question I get a lot is, have you got deli belly? How's that gone? And yes, 6-7 weeks in India, I've not had any problems, apart from that one late night, early morning period. I've never had any sustained problems. But I've liked the food in a lot of countries. I feel I'm pretty adaptable at dealing with food in different places, and my belly is as well, so praise the Lord. In Georgia, they had some very distinctive foods. One of them was called King Kali. And King Kali is like a beef dumpling with like a pasta shell. And I made a video of this. You like bite into the shell, suck out the juice, then you like bite away at the rest of the King Kali, and then you throw away the stalk. And that was like a good cultural bit of Georgian food.
Good. Okay, let's look back home a bit.
Yeah.
Oscar Mara and Sarah Townsend want to know, what do you miss the most about home?
Oh,
it's challenging.
It's a good question. I think obviously you do have to give up a lot coming on a trip like this. Like family, friends, sleeping in a bed, knowing where you're going to sleep each night. I think sometimes it's just the simple things that I miss. Walking to a Sainsbury's local, getting a sandwich and sitting on a park bench or something. No. Going on a walk in a National Trust place. Josh has experienced India, where there's natural beauty. There's no setup here for enjoying tourism. So there's just litter everywhere. There's still a lot of pollution in the countryside. So going on a nice country walk on a footpath just doesn't happen here. I think even at the end of my road is a woods back home, and that's probably what I miss the most. Going to Pets with Woods, a nice walk, going for a coffee, having a sandwich, like just the British thing.
The simple life.
Yeah.
What was the worst? This is from Kate Monday. What's the worst travel advice you can give it?
Sure. I think a lot of people, it seems that they're the ones that already cycle around the world when they meet you there. You should do this or you should do that. I think in terms of the worst travel advice, it's probably the warnings I've got about certain places. So, oh, you shouldn't go through that place, or you've got to be very careful. There's a state in India that I went through very recently called Orissa, and everyone in India has this negative view of Orissa as a state. And people were warning me, maybe similar to say the Wirral or Hull in the UK. Sorry if you're from there. And,
it's a lovely place.
Yeah, I know Katie Holloway's watching it. And yeah, everyone was saying, oh, you're going to get attacked, you can get robbed. And I didn't. So I suppose that was travel advice that I did listen to, and it was good, but at the same time I think I took it with like a pinch of salt, and I was positive to people there, and they were positive as well in return.
Brilliant. Greg Waller, he wants to know, how are you going to celebrate reaching your final destination?
Yeah. So the final place I'm going to is the Philippines, and that was the idea from the start. The reason for that is that there's a office of a charity that I'm raising awareness and some money for, called International Justice Mission. So I'm going to spend it there, and just a little bit more about them. So they work in a lot of different countries in Asia, Africa, and they have offices in places, and they look to set people free from slavery and persecution. So people that are working against their will, they look to set up lawyers and the justice systems to set them free. So in places where there's places where like slavery is the worst, is where there's no law against it, or the laws against it are very slack. So they'll come in, they'll set up the laws, and then they'll look to set people free specifically. And myself and Josh are actually going to the office in Calcutta tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to learn a lot more about what they do in India, and from that hopefully give some more information to people back home. So yeah, I'm going to be in the Philippines, in the office in Manila. That's going to be kind of the what I was aiming for during the whole trip. But then a couple of friends that Josh has mates with as well from university have said they might come out. It's going to be around the World Cup final as well, like mid-July. So I'm dreaming England, World Cup final, Philippines, Manila, IJM, T-shirt. Wait, no, who's banging them in? Harry Kane.
Harry Kane!
Harry Kane steps up, penalty shootout. And I fly home champion of
life,
feeling on top of the world, having cycled to Manila and England winning the World Cup.
I think you'll get back home. I don't think England will win it, but
okay, thank you.
Abby Fret, she's wanting to know.
Josh's sister.
My sister. Why did you pick IGM? Obviously, it's an amazing cause, but there's so many amazing charities out there. Why did you pick them?
Good question.
Is this whole journey of you traveling around the world, that's you trying to raise money, and how does that involve us, people listening?
Yeah, a big part of it was the last year I was in the southeast in Bromley, Sidcup. I went to a church called New Community Sidcup, and they will be meeting this evening, 6 PM tonight in the UK. And our church in Sidcup, we directly support the office in Manila, in the Philippines. So over the last couple of years, we've given a lot of money in support of the charity there. So I knew I wanted to do a cycle, and then I wanted more purpose in it. So that was one of the purposes of the cycle, to go to the Philippines, raise money along the way, and then visit the Philippines. And I've already realised that when you meet people that are in a place and you meet them and you become more personal with them, then you've got more of a commitment to maybe pray for them or message them or give money to them. So hopefully it will build up kind of more of a lifelong commitment, even for myself, to support the charity and cause.
Yeah. We'll ask more questions about your purpose of your travelling later, but we're going to go focusing on kit.
Kit.
There's quite a few cyclists and adventurers out there, enthusiasts, So all your questions are now going to be asked.
Yes,
The first question from Simon
Craigie.
I've kind of, honed it down. Is one of the top 3 most valuable items you have with you?
Top 3. Apart from the bike or with the bike?
Apart from the bike.
Apart from the bike.
You need a bicycle.
Yeah, that's a given on a bike tour. Top 3, I'd say, modern way, I'm not using paper maps, I'm using my phone. And my phone is very, very valuable because it's got the maps, it's got the route, it's got the connections, the numbers of people, it's got everything. I can ring my sister, I can ring Josh, I can ring my mum, ring my dad, even ring Grandma Tamage if I want to. So my phone. Secondly, is actually probably the pouch that I keep my phone in. Josh has seen me use it. I'm so good at just sneaking out, taking a video, taking a photo, listening to a podcast. And if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to do that so quickly. I'd be getting on and off my bike all the time. So yeah, the pouch that my phone's in. It was a top 3.
Yeah, top 3.
The third one.
Yeah, the pouch is useful. Big fan of that.
Yeah, I feel like a kangaroo, basically.
Yeah.
The third one probably London to Istanbul. It was my mascot duck called Paxman, and every time I felt a bit low, I would pat my little duck called Paxman, and it would give me that boost. And the reason it's called Paxman is that my friends from university, we got a group, and we called ourselves Paxman for some reason. We know the reason, I won't tell you. And we sing this little song which goes,
Paxman, number 1, Paxman, number 1.
So every time I felt a bit low, I'd pat the duck and say, Paxman, number 1, Paxman. But then I left it in Istanbul, so...
Oh, no.
But luckily, it's at a very, very good home in Istanbul with some people that I was with out there, so good.
So I thought my question was going to be stolen, but actually, with the stuff you've got right now, what possession you own and have with you would you not like to get stolen?
So yeah, I'm not going to say any of those things. And one thing I've been doing since the very start, I've stayed with a huge number of people, both from an app called Warm Showers, which connects different cyclists. So if you want to go on a cycle tour, use Warm Showers to connect yourself with cyclists, and you can stay with someone for the night. They look after you, they cook you an amazing dinner. They often are experts on the local area, so it's a good way to connect with cyclists. And then also pastors and churches, and every time I've stayed with someone, I've got them to write a message in this little book. And the thing that's probably most precious that I would hate to lose the most is this book of messages, prayer requests from each of the people that I've stayed with. And it's been amazing, like staying with people and they've said, oh, we'll pray for you on the journey. And there's been too many coincidences that have happened for me to say that prayer doesn't work in some way. But also I've said I pray for them. And this book is getting fuller and fuller, and I feel a big commitment on my shoulders now to keep on praying for the people that I've met on the roads.
Well, it's fine. He was the prayer secretary at Nottingham University, so he'll be all over it.
Yeah.
Katie Lout?
Let's call say Holloway.
Kate Holloway. She says, "Oi, Hull is lovely." She's also asking, does your bicycle have a name?
It should have a name, and I did at one point have a name, and almost the name of the duck has become the name of the bicycle, but it's not a very used name, so it doesn't really have a name, no. So it's a Doors Coast to Coast bicycle. So that's my best offer at a name, the Doors, the Coast to Coast. Right. So if you need baby names for your new child, Coast to Coast could be a good option.
Sam Agnew has asked, have you ever had a puncture in the last... Puncture.
Almost 9,000 kilometres of cycling, and my first puncture was after about 7,000, and it was coming into the state of Goa in India. Along the highway, got a puncture, and I actually inwardly, it sounds a bit strange, I kind of cheered because I wanted that moment of having a puncture so that it wasn't like a fear factor. And only very recently before that, I'd inflated my tyres, changed them after the aeroplane had taken them from Istanbul to India. So it was good. I had the knowledge fresh in my mind of changing a puncture, and there was like a big bit of metal. So Sam Agnew, one puncture, get the marathon Schwabble tyres, and they see you through 30,000 kilometres.
David Holloway.
Yeah, married to Katie.
Married to Katie, he's asked a very good question. How have you planned this whole journey? I mean, it's a lot of organisation. How are you doing it from week to week, or do you plan way in advance?
Very logistical question. Sorry if you're not into logistics, but we'll press on. Nice. So in September, one of the best bits of advice I got from my pastor at home, James Silly, was don't go straight away. Spend about 3 or 4 weeks planning. And that was the best advice I got, because I spent those 3 or 4 weeks sending emails to churches, sorting out my kit. And in Europe, I did have some good connections with churches before I went, but also people on the road connected me church to church. And I had more of a set route. But now in India, I just download the Google Maps of the area, so I've got that. I don't need internet on my phone. And then I'll ask pastors if they know anyone in the area that I'm going to. Originally, I met a pastor in Mumbai, in Thessaloniki in Greece, and he lives in Mumbai. So I went to Mumbai. He picked me up at 6 a.m. from the airport with 2 of his mates. Stayed there for 4 days, and then he had loads of contacts for the next places I was going to. So in India, I've spoken to pastors on the phone that I haven't even met a number of times, and I'll have a nice chat with them, ask them how they are, and I feel like I know them well, but still haven't met them. And yeah, there's a real culture here. I think a man on a bike in India is, a white man on a bike at least, is quite a rare thing. So people really want to serve you, honour you, and there's a saying in Hindi which says, our guest is our God. So often you do come away from places feeling like you'd be treated like a king, because they've shown you such love and grace.
This leads really nicely on to our next set of questions, slightly more.
Before we do that, one more little thing that means a lot to me is every day of the cycle, logistics. I've written down, I'll show you here, some statistics each day. So I've got where I finished that day, how many kilometres, how many hours, who I prayed for, and the Bible, so lots of your names there. And then podcasts, ideas, and what happened during the day on this side. So this now stretches 4 pages. And I thought, Josh, just so I can tell a story a bit more in detail, there's so many stories. If you tell me a number from 1 to 4.
Yeah.
Go on.
3.
3. Okay, 1.
That was exciting.
2, 3. Now I'm going to close my eyes and you need to say stop. And I'm going to tell a story from that day.
Stop.
Okay. Whoosh. So, this is the 18th of November. That day, I was going to Tirana in the capital of...
What is it, the capital of?
The capital of Albania.
Albania.
That day I travelled 111 kilometres, 5 hours 24. I was praying for Sarah Ward, sister of George Ward. She was getting married that day. Crazy. Yeah.
What?
My mum and dad, Emily and Ross, churches from the start. Ali Jones, I was praying for you. And then in Albania, it was the first country that I went through that I was very much recognised as a foreigner, and everyone was waving at me, saying hello, how are you? And I suppose that warmed me up for India, which has been the case a lot of the time now. So that's everything that was happening that day. So if you want to know what happened on your birthday. Your birthday's between September and today. Text me, message me, comment, and I can tell you what I was doing on that day.
Amazing.
You know, one funny question that we were talking about earlier was about the how have I kept sane, or how have what were we saying?
So I've cycled with Foxy for 2 days, and when we're cycling, people just stare at you the whole time, obviously because we're white, and maybe they haven't seen a white person ever or for a long time, so they just stare at you. And when you're cycling as well, they'll cycle their motorbike, or they'll just drive along you and just stare at you and then ask you loads of questions. So my first question on the bicycle, when people just left us from staring at us, Or it's Foxy, it's like, Foxy, how are you still sane? So Foxy, how are you still sane? He's a little bit sane, but he's, yeah.
How am I still sane? I'm going crazy. You do have to play some games with yourself because, yeah, you have to answer the same questions over and over and over. And yeah, one of the questions that I get one of the questions I get asked a lot is where I'm from, where I eat, what I do overnight, that kind of thing. And yeah, one morning I woke up last week and I was thinking, imagine if I had Harry Potter's invisibility cloak, and I'm imagining that people, instead of looking at me, were looking straight through me and I wasn't there. So I was imagining myself cycling through India with this invisibility cloak. And it actually worked for a bit, and I was like, someone would look at me and I'd look behind and be like, oh, they can't see me. So there's a lot of crazy games like that where you kind of have to entertain yourself. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay.
That and just shout like English in really quickly and they quickly.
Oh yeah, have you told them about Paxman?
Yeah, like say names of people from back home that they obviously have no idea who they are, or they think you're just mad, and then they drive off. That's another tactic.
Yeah, it's a good way to get rid of them. Okay, your dad, Steve Fox, man did the half marathon, personal best. He's asked you, how did you justify giving up a comfortable job and a nice place to leave and head to the unknown?
Oh, very good question from my father. I think one of the key words in that is comfort, and I read something the other day that people in society massively admire adventure and risk-taking, but themselves, they seek comfort. So there's a pool that you admire and you applaud adventure, but you take comfortable decisions. And for me, I admired and applauded adventure, and I wanted to seek it. So it was unnatural, the first step, to like quit your job or to take that initial big leap. But from the life I lived, I was making smallest decisions of adventure and of wanting to explore places locally. And I was almost scared of living a comfortable life and being in the school that I was teaching at for the next 10, 20 years and never taking the opportunity that I knew I had in that time. When I'm 27, I haven't got a family, I haven't got a mortgage, I haven't got a car. So in the life stage I was in, it was still not too difficult a decision to make. So how could I justify it? I think, yeah, justifying it by now I've got a lot of time back in London working to come, and being young, I could make that decision. Yeah.
So you had fears of not doing an adventure. Did you have any fears of doing the adventure?
Yeah, well, the whole thing of not knowing where you'll sleep each night and being in situations where, I remember in Europe when I was camping a lot, and it would get to maybe an hour before sunset, and there would inside of me be a nervousness, but within that there was an element of my faith rising up, and as a Christian, like praying and committing my anxieties to God. And there was a quote from a missionary to China that I had on my wall as a teenager, and it said, Hudson Taylor, it said, if there's no risk in our living, then there's no need for God. So if we have no risks, then we've got no need for dependence on someone greater, because we can be self-sufficient. And that really grew my faith, because in risk-taking, I could then depend more on God. And I suppose people that aren't Christians, in their risk-taking, they might depend more on other people, or more on maybe themselves, or try harder to be good enough. But for me as a Christian, it was about depending more on God.
And in those hard moments when it was getting slightly challenging, did you ever, in any of those moments, want to go home? Sage Jeffries asked that, nice American girl.
Oh, Sage, she's staying where we are here. I think one of the low moments and one of the moments when I felt like going home, but I knew I wouldn't go home. I think even in the first week of the cycle, you kind of question, you've got such an intimidating length of time ahead of you, and you think, wow, like this is unachievable. But yeah, that quickly, I think, went and I got into the routine. But more recently, when I was Christmas into New Year, I wasn't cycling. I'd stopped for a week, I was in Georgia, and it was an amazing time with an amazing church and lovely people. But I missed my family, I missed the routines of Christmas at home, and I actually was quite fearful of coming to India because it's a completely different culture. It was the unknown. I didn't know what to expect so much, and actually I was about to pack my bike up into a box and go to the airport, and I rang my sister on the phone, and yeah, it got a bit. I was missing home. And it wasn't so much I wanted to go home; it was more that I was missing home, and had a chat with her. She prayed for me. I had a cry, and then had a massive panic because my flight was. But I was trusting in God because I knew that it was a great time of prayer. I knew a great chat, and I almost was like, if that was meant to happen, that time of prayer and chat, then I know that also I'll get this flight. And got in a taxi, breathed a sigh of relief, and I shared an apple with the taxi driver, and I knew at that point that my nerves were gone, and it was going to be okay as we just ate an apple.
Also with that, can you share the story that Simon Fox, you mentioned earlier, he goes to churches and gets involved, and you shared a story of when it was raining and the family. Can you tell these guys?
Yeah. So throughout the trip, I think I've been to over 30 churches now, and probably on a Sunday there's been about 20 Sundays. Every single Sunday I've been to a church. Even last week I didn't plan to go to a church. The local pastors tracked me down. I didn't tell them which hotel I was in. I thought I'd missed church. They turned up in this hotel in the elevator. They did like a little code name, like, oh, praise the Lord. I was like, praise the Lord? They were like, we're waiting for you at church. So I had quickly on the back of a motorbike, straight to the church, applauded down the aisle, sat at the front of church, and then 5 minutes later I was speaking to this church in India, and I felt like, wow, someone wants me to be at church this week. But in Croatia, you're kind of a story of the love and hospitality that I've had, and a story that I've shared at a lot of churches to kind of show what I believe is the Father's love of God and how He is so loving towards us. I was in the rain in Croatia. I'd set off, and it was kind of light rain, and hours went past, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and the rain was getting heavier, and I hadn't eaten any lunch. It was getting to about 1 p.m. I was getting reduced energy. I needed to eat something, but I couldn't stop because it was so heavy rain. So I was praying, like, God, provide somewhere with a roof to just shelter under for lunch. So then after about 15 minutes praying, I saw a roof, and this roof was underneath a well. And underneath the well, I was like, oh, perfect, I'll have my sandwiches. So I ate my sandwiches, and that kind of distracted me from being cold and wet. And then I realised again, hang on, I'm cold, I'm wet, I'm pretty helpless here. I'm either going to have to continue through this downpour and get wetter, or stay here and be cold but not go anywhere. And at that moment, this guy, a landowner, comes across the field towards the well, and he's shouting, he's like, blah, 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 shouting at me, and I'm like, oh, he's an angry farmer, he's going to tell me to go. So I was kind of started to pack up my things, ready to go. And then one word he says, I understand, he says, coffee. So I'm like, okay, he wants me to come with him. So I follow him into his house, and there inside is not just coffee, but his wife, Minka, his name is Stephen, and they made some cake, they made some coffee. He takes my wet, cold clothes, he gives me new clothes, and then they didn't speak a word of English, and their friend turns up, who's an English speaker, so he starts to translate. And they say, oh, why don't you stay tonight? It's getting late and it's still raining. So I was like, yeah, stay tonight. And then they're like, oh, one problem. I was like, oh, problem? Tonight we're going hunting. And I was like, hunting? And we went out that night, gave me some hunting gear, took this gun that was absolutely huge, and this guy Millet went into a field. Everything was silent. Heard this breathing animal, and then he shot this animal, massive squeal. And it turned out to be a 120 kilogram pig, which is a lot higher than I am, a lot taller. And they went back, skinned it, chopped it, cooked it, we feasted. And the next morning it was that time to say goodbye. And this couple that didn't speak any English, obviously there's a bit of extra information there, like hanging out with them in the evening, but I was saying goodbye to them. And as I said goodbye, the mother, Minka, she started to cry. And one of the things that really impacted me was that I'd asked them how many children they'd had, and they said that they'd never had children. And I kind of was there, like I'd been their son for a night, and she started crying, he started crying, and then as I cycled off, I couldn't help it, I started to cry. And the message of like faith within that is a story about the prodigal son. I think it's Luke 17, where Jesus talks about a son that's wasted his entire being. He's wasted his father's money, but then he thinks, I'm going to go back to the father. At least I can be his servant. And then this father comes running to him as soon as he sees him. He's smelly, he's dirty, but he accepts him just as he is. He wraps his arms around him. He says, I love you, puts his ring on his finger, gives him a robe, and then kills him, the fat calf. So I felt like I'd lived that, that Bible story. But that's like a message I share with the churches, and talk about the love of the Father God that I know, and the love that they can know, you can know. So.
So you must have met so many amazing people. The pastor we met is amazing.
Yeah.
That family are amazing.
Yeah.
AJ wants to know who's the most inspiring person you've met on this trip.
Again, I think that's like asking a grandma who their favourite grandchild is, and they'd say, oh, all of them. But there are so many amazing, inspiring people. Even at this place, like we've met a guy called David, and we went to bed at 10 the other night, saw him, ended up chatting for 3 hours. He's an American nurse, Christian. Just so many inspirational stories. And in terms of the most inspiring, I think one guy sticks in my mind a lot. It was a 75-year-old cyclist I met in the first week. He was cycling
in India, first week?
No, sorry, in Holland.
Holland, okay.
Yeah. And he was cycling 140 kilometres to drop a book to a friend, and was thinking about cycling 140 kilometres back to make it 280 round trip. And I had an amazing time learning from him. He turned out to be a Christian, so I talked to him about church and his cycling. Obviously, spoke to me on many levels. So he was a massive inspiration. 75 years old, cycling 280 kilometres. Yeah.
So in the beginning of your trip, so if you don't know much of what happened earlier as well, Simon has done loads of blogs and videos. Andy Holloway's asking, you quoted people's definition of adventure.
Yeah.
What's your definition of adventure, and has your definition changed?
Yeah, I think I read something really nice on Twitter. Alistair Humphreys, who made this term the micro-adventure, he said that in one night you can experience the adventure of cycling around the world if you just go somewhere and you camp under the stars, you take your tent, you don't go to a campsite, but you go somewhere wild. And I think, the element of adventure is stepping out of your comfort zone and doing something that you wouldn't normally do. Maybe trusting in your ability or someone else for hospitality. So adventure being the unknown. I think I knew that, but I think now I kind of see it in a way that even is maybe more small scale, that if you want to experience that, you can do that on a weekend.
And with that as well, so Alex Hamilton again has asked a similar question. He knows a few people, and I'm sure we both know people that are seeking or craving a good adventure to go on. But like your dad asked earlier, there's so much comfort in home and in the UK. So what advice would you give for people that want to be adventurers, but there's just something holding them back?
Yeah, maybe ask someone that you know is into adventure, like, oh, let's do something, have you got any ideas? Me and my dad in the last 3 years, on the day nearest to the summer solstice, or the weekend, we've gone on a micro-adventure weekend where we've walked a long-distance footpath, maybe the South Downs, the North Downs, or there's a footpath in between the two. And we've slept under the stars each night, we've walked a long way, had a great pub lunch, and that's a great adventure, a great way to connect with my dad. And something small scale like that, choose a weekend. I know apparently it's quite cold in the UK despite our 30 degrees here. Yeah, choose something that even if going for walks, something you don't do, go for a walk and take a map, like learn a new skill on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday, like something that you wouldn't normally do that's like a bit more than you think you're capable of. Do it and see how you enjoy it.
Yeah. You talked earlier about your sort of seeking that risk because it allows you to trust God. Caleb Meekins is asked, from this whole experience so far, do you think you've changed?
Oosh. Yeah, changed.
Great question. The oosh.
I think some people think I would have lost weight, but I don't think I have after the Indian.
Not physically changed.
Have I changed? I think I've become more appreciative of people around the world, as you would, because I've met more people around the world. And then I've been massively impacted by the churches and the hospitality that I've received. And one of the things that they're big on in Indian churches is prayer and fasting. And that's made a big impact on me. In terms of change, Josh said something nice, that he wasn't sure if I'd still have the banter, the jokes. And thankfully I've managed to not lose it.
He hasn't lost it.
He
hasn't lost it. That's, praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. Yeah, I think I'm going to think about that one a bit more, because you learn so much, but then you only see yourself every day, so you can't see yourself at the start and the massive difference it has made. You kind of see a tiny difference, so I have to think more about it.
Can I actually answer that slightly, just from observation? You know, when you meet him, you can make your own assumption. But his character, his root, and who he is, and the way he goes about things, his sort of fox nature hasn't changed. But I think the way he approaches life, and I think the word commitment, you're kind of more keen to commit to things, and the things you want to emphasise and put importance to value on has maybe changed.
I think that's one thing I've learned a lot, and one thing I feel is very strongly to, even before the trip, but is when you get to any of these places in Europe and now in India, you ask, oh, where are you from, like to this person, and they'll say, I'm from here, this is my home, this is my village, like this next place or this place. And that's that, you know, that people are committed to their home, and I think it's good to be committed to somewhere. And for a lot of people that is their home, because they know the culture, they know the people, it's their family. And for me, like after this trip, which I'm going to finish in July, I'm looking forward to be committed back to where I was beforehand. So yeah. How long have we got till Tottenham? Very soon.
5 minutes. We're going to get on this. Okay, we're almost there.
We'll wrap it up.
Only like 3 more, I think. Abby Fratt has asked, have you had to be careful about your faith in any of the countries?
Yes. India, for one. I've been warned not to be too out there in social media sharing. I'm not sure if I've kept that very well.
He doesn't go to church.
A number of bouquets and flowers and weddings and sorts, and but I haven't been at any churches. And then in Turkey, it was 99% Muslim, and there were some warnings about people being arrested for sharing faith. But yeah.
Okay. I think the second last one we've got is fundraising. He's talked about IGM, International Justice Mission, and you said that's a big purpose of your travelling. And you kind of briefly mentioned other things, but do you have any other purpose of why you're doing this big adventure?
Yeah, really quickly, like what I say when I'm sharing is like the inward investment of faith, and so like Bible study, prayer, and adventure, like learning more about what adventure is and why people seem to love it so much, and then outwardly to encourage people. So in terms of the people I meet on the roads, the people I meet in churches, not that I speak at them, but the people I meet in churches, and the people back home as well, because that's a part of why I'm doing this, like to encourage people in thinking about faith, thinking about adventure for themselves. I don't want, I think some people might be dismissive of like the video and think, oh, like, is he just loving himself? But hopefully if you know me, I just want to encourage people, and the same for Josh as well. I just want people to feel a part of the adventure, but also to encourage them what they could do to experience more adventure and live by faith in their own lives. So, yeah.
Amazing. And do you have a little nugget to leave us with?
A nugget.
It's a nice naughty little nugget.
A nugget to leave us with. I think one thing is in the UK there's a lot of rushing from time to time, or from event to event, occasion. And one of the things in this cycle is that I don't have to rush. I can have a chance meeting with someone and spend an hour with them. Yesterday we met a man in a village in India who was from Bristol and he'd seen no white person in weeks, and we ended up chatting with him for 2 hours about to cycle off because we could, So I would say, although it might not be so practical, give people your time, or make times in your life when you can give people your time. And even, that might just be a small thing or a big thing, but try and be more flexible, because when you can be flexible, it's showing people love, care, but it's also giving people your time.
Amazing. Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up. Just quickly, James Fern, Tottenham are going to win 3-0 to Rochdale. So great question.
We're about to tune in. Tottenham, Rochdale.
Guys, just want to say, those who watched, thank you so much for the time. This guy was, I absolutely believe he was absolutely worth it. Listen, I hope you guys feel the same way.
I am.
So thank you so much for your posts, your questions, and getting involved.
I'm going to choose some people that post questions. So even if you're watching this later, I'm going to send them a little postcard. So post a question and I'll send you a cheeky little postcard.
The best questions.
Well, the best ones.
Best ones. But yeah, thank you so much for your time. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I have.
God bless you. That half an hour was a long one, but it was worth it. Good night.
Come on, you Spurs!
Eagles! Oh no.